All right, welcome. Today we're here with Gordon Macdonald, founder of the Auction Group, and probably, in my eyes, one of the top auctioneers in Australia, having
Too kind.
having previously auctioned with you back in the day when I was in real estate.
Yeah.
And I think to say a seamless process is probably not doing it justice. But to kick things off, I guess what really led you to jump into the auction space, and what's kept you there for so long?
Yeah, I've always loved auction day as a salesperson, and I guess during my tenure as a salesperson, I thought, well, how do I do more auctions? So I always gravitated towards doing more auctions as a salesperson, and then I wanted to amplify that and think, how do I replicate the auction day experience every day? And I thought, well, I'll just become an auctioneer. So I was calling my own auctions towards the end as a salesperson, and then had an opportunity to break away. So burnt the ships on the shore, so to speak, as a real estate agent, and dived into the space of being an independent auctioneer based on the Sunshine Coast. I've been doing it now for almost 15 years, and I call anywhere between 750 or 1,000 auctions a year, depending on the market cycle, and I still love it. It's a forever evolving space, and you still need to be ever present, and the relationships just keep getting better and better with our clients, but with the community. It's great to see the same faces come to auctions and build a really good relationship with the really active buyers in the marketplace as well, because I just get to see them so regularly. Had 5 or 6 auctions yesterday, and they're all similar areas, similar price points. I would have seen those buyers multiple times over the last couple of months, and for whatever reason, they'd be the underbidder, and maybe they were the underbidder again last night. Maybe they were the highest bidder. But it was really good to be part of their journey, which is, as an independent auctioneer, sometimes we are on the peripheral of the negotiation, because it's right there at the pointy end. Whereas you think of a real estate agent, they've known a client for 10 years, they've kept in contact with that client, that property's come to market, so and they've been on the market for 4 weeks, and they've nursed the buyer for an extended period of time. So they've got a really great relationship with their clients that they are working with, whereas I only get to see them right at the pointy end. So it's nice to bring that loop to a close on auction day.
And I think it's it's good to mention too, having obviously done auctions with you previously, you do draw quite the crowd, which is probably something that's quite special. With so many transactions happening now, having called through, I guess, the buyers to get them to the auction, and then obviously just a local community, it was a big question that was, will Gordon be calling the auction? So
good.
I think that's a big testament too, to say that, you are well known, you do a good job, but also it's getting more people to the auctions, which is...
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's nice to know. I always wonder at the listing presentation stage, when my name comes up, and is that a request from the client, or and I always hope that it is a request from the client. And for the agents that don't use me, I always think, it's nice that the agent, the seller is bringing up my name into that conversation. And obviously for the clients that we do work with, it's generally the decision has been made by that seller to use that agent, and they've probably seen us at multiple auctions during the latter stages of when they're starting to come to market. So I've already got a relationship with that vendor. Whether I've met them or not, they've already seen me in action, and so there's a certain level of trust, and that we're going to do the right job and get them the right money.
Which I think that comes back to a very clear brand identity. Obviously now it's probably a lot easier, getting requested to come in and call auctions by both parties. What did it look like back, when you decided, look, I'm going to go call auctions, Noosa, Sunshine, the Sunshine Coast as a whole? What was it like to crack in?
Yeah, it was an obsessive time for me. I just found myself with such a high level of output, and I've really subscribed to the law of reciprocation, and I was giving to my potential clients, whether it was through training or just advice. I felt as though I had a lot to offer because I'd already conducted a lot of auctions as a salesperson, and so I would report in with them, see how they're going. The power of just dropping into an office and seeing an agent and saying g'day and asking how they're going, and quite often it would just come up in conversation. They'd say, "Oh, okay, what are you doing on the in 4 weeks' time, or there's I'm considering taking this particular property to auction. What should I do? What should I say?" So I had to position myself as the next in line, that they had an auctioneer, whether it was a corporate auctioneer or a principal auctioneer or a salesperson auctioneer or an independent auctioneer. I always had to position myself in the hierarchy. And sometimes it was, I thought, okay, I'm number 2 here. If for whatever reason the first auctioneer falls off the perch, I'm number 3, I'm number 4. Well, like, where am I in the list? Like, who do they call if their auctioneer can't make it, for example? So I just found myself being everywhere all the time, like starting at Caloundra, ending up in Noosa on the same day, and just dropping into every single office, calling as many people as I possibly could. That went on for years. And for whatever reason, their auctioneer couldn't make it, so then they'd call me. I'd do a good job, and then I'd get the call back. And now those relationships are, they're 15 years old now, so I sometimes feel for the auctioneers coming up through the ranks now, and I think about the relationships and the deposits we've made into the emotional bank account of the buyer, whether it was through a really great negotiation or we've pulled the impossible deal together or whatever. It's very hard for other auctioneers to penetrate that dynamic of auctioneer and agent and agency.
Yeah, and it's good to highlight, for a lot of the young agents, auctioneers out there that are getting into it, it's a long game. Same as real estate. Everyone wants something too quickly now. You got to play the long game. You got to build out your strategy.
Yeah, look, I'm forever grateful of my time with Jason Andrew, who's now the CEO for Ray White Queensland. I spent 7 years with him, and in a lot of ways it was I felt like it was a 7-year apprenticeship. Well, name anyone that's willing to do a 7-year apprenticeship. And so that just people just they see a particular client and they're doing 200 auctions a year, and so that rookie auctioneer just goes straight for that person, or that principal or that business doing 200 auctions a year, and they think that's the business that I want. But they just can't get it. They just, because they haven't earned the right to be there. They haven't been through the pain and the hardship and the uncomfortability, and to be able to be there.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone coming up through the ranks, and we coach plenty of auctioneers now, we in conjunction with Peter Ford and the team at Complete Property Training. 4 or 5 times a year we have waves of auctioneers coming through for a licensing course, and that we get them licensed and get them up and running, in a very practical sense. And they all say, well, how do we crack in? And really, the only way to crack in is the same way that we have all cracked in, and the auctioneers that have come before me, and that is to find an agency that isn't doing auctions and shine the light in the auction space and just create an auction business. So you find an agency that is pro-private treaty and anti-auction, and convert them, because the auctioneer that can convert that business will have that business for life. Yeah. I mean, I won't be able to get that business, from the agent, from the auctioneer that converts that agency.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even try.
How are you finding it at the moment with offices that are sort of converting from the sale method to the auction method?
Yeah.
And, probably on the back of that question, how is the auction process performing at the moment? Obviously in a changing market.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of agencies are just having a bit of a refresher. They sort of, for whatever reason, in Queensland, there are a lot of auctions during a challenging market. During the COVID-induced boom, there There were a lot of auctions, but there was just a huge amount of turnover as well. But for a lot of them, they didn't necessarily. Some of them chose not to do auctions because they could sell it in a day, they could sell it in a week.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't even have to put a sign up out the front. They already had buyers lined up. So agents sometimes, you know, just have a clear, that just want to have the quickest road towards getting the property sold, as opposed to, you know, having it on the market for 21 days, 28 days, and really making sure that we're getting the very best out of the market. So a lot of agents during the boom just chose to sell them and not do auctions. Yep. So a lot of them are coming back now that days on market are dragging out. There's less urgency in the market. You know, some agents are drifting off doing whatever they were doing before they came into the industry. And you know, so it's a bit of a refresher at the moment, but they are coming back because, you know, there is less urgency. Days on market are starting to push out. There is less buyers in the market for all the reasons that are very well documented. You know, you got to watch the news, you know, to pick a few.
Yeah. What's, you know, obviously there's a whole nother process to the auction method. How are you finding that with, you know, attention to detail, and, you know, how agents are really starting to change the way that they're, you know, processing their stock and taking stock to market? And,
yeah.
You know, I guess that will tie in at the same time. Are they really starting to focus on, you know, brand identity and the voice of themselves as an agent or an agency, and really starting to do that big reset as a whole, you know, cleaner marketing, pushing video or...
Yeah, definitely. Part of getting a property well sold is a property well listed. So obviously the relationship has to be really great, right from the outset, because, you know, a home needs to be presented to the market where first impressions matter and really count, because the buying market, they're just scrolling for new listings, because, you know, for whatever reason, stock's still relatively tight. So, but when they see a property for the first time, the agent needs the first sale is the sale of curiosity, and the outcome of a sale of curiosity is how engaged is the buyer? Are they looking at the open for inspection times? Are they turning up for the first open for inspection? Are they sending us an email for more advice, more information, that type of thing? So if that, you know, if the marketing's dull, or if the the first impression isn't impactful, there's no environment created, and the environment that agents need to create for their vendor and for their property is that when a buyer comes to the very first open for inspection, they really, you know, they want to see a heap of shoes out the front, and you know, there's people everywhere, and something happens in the buyer, and it's social proof that probably they think, okay, well, all these people like it, I like it too, I want what you're eating, you know, it's social proof. If everyone else wants it, I want it. You know, but the polar of that is someone turns up to an open for inspection, it's been on the market for 3 months, there's no one there, and they think, well, where is everyone? And you know, and the buyer thinks, well, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
You know, if no one else wants it, I don't want it either. The house might be perfect for them. Yeah, but there's just no one there. So, yeah, and whether that's through marketing or... It generally something has been missed. You know, world-class copy, world-class photos, world-class video, the very best presence online. I'm still a believer in print for a number of reasons, but it's the psychology of the buyer when they see it in the paper that, oh, okay, well, everyone's seeing this,
yep.
or the vendor, you know, and the vendors are also committed to the outcome, you know, with a financial commitment, and the agent also becomes committed as well. They're thinking, right, this is here's my face in the paper. You know, the auction's in 10 days' time. Like, what work haven't I done yet?
Yep.
You know, what stones haven't I looked under? So it just forces more accountability and more action.
Are you seeing that more on the top end of the market, or just as a whole in the ones that you've been working with for quite some time?
Yeah, I mean, there are places on the Sunshine Coast where everything is considered top end, on a world scale, basically. The agents that carry that top end property, and for some markets on the Sunshine Coast, that's $1 million. For others, that's 10 million. And it's the same as auctioneers earning the right to be there. It's the same as agents. They've got to earn the right to be there, and to be the agent of choice. If you've got a $10 million property, that vendor is sophisticated enough to gravitate towards the agent that is got a track record, or they gravitate towards their marketing, or just the way they conduct themselves in the marketplace.
Yeah. On a more broad angle, I guess, being the owner of the auction group and selling across, multiple states in Australia, are you finding that that's across the board, or are you finding state by state is very much differently presented to the market?
Look, I'm just Queensland these days. Okay. I used to call auctions elsewhere, but I'm just Queensland, and I used to carry a lot of licenses for a lot of different states, but now I'm just Caloundra to Noosa, I just see I see on auction day. The depth of marketing for properties that are received the best from the buyers, it's just great. It's just first class. There's no question mark on have they skimped anywhere with any of the marketing, and that comes with it. The relationship with the agent has with the vendor as well.
Yeah. With the changing market that we're sort of in, what are you really focusing on at the moment with your clients across the board, just to ensure that obviously the stock that is going to market is getting a good run, and obviously trying to get clearance rates as high as possible?
Well, part of it is helping our sellers approach the negotiation logically, and the only way to become logical is to have more information, and by information, I mean feedback from the market, offers from the market. The agents, in a lot of ways, in a changing market, have to be so neutral. They almost have to, in my opinion, remove their opinion on what the property could sell for, or what the outcome should be, and just go on a deep dive with the people that are actually the ones committing.
Yep.
And if they do that, they will establish what sort of buyers are they, what properties have they missed out on recently, have they been the underbidders on properties recently, or are they just, this is the first property that they have seen, and so with that conversation, or that level of buyer work, establishing what is good feedback and what isn't good feedback. It's okay to find out what somebody thinks a property is worth. Is that really important to the vendor? What's ultimately important to the vendor, in my opinion, is how much someone is prepared to pay. There's much better information. It's quality information. And so with that information, the vendors and I should say agents can sort of lead that conversation with the vendor and make sure that the vendor understands a good offer when it lands on their table. Because very often, great offers are presented, whether that's before auction day or on auction day. We might have competitive bidding to an amazing number, but the vendor just hasn't got enough experience or time on the market or enough information to recognise it as a good offer. Because when I go to sell my home, I want more than what the thing's worth. The same goes with you. We have this built-in mechanism as homeowners that we all think it's worth 10 or 20 or 30% more than what it's actually worth. So now that's the space that agents live in, helping. It's not like the stock market. It is an emotional process, highly emotional. However, if sellers and agents stay in that emotional state, then the buyers are approaching it more logically. Yep. And even when a buyer walks into an open for inspection, they think, wow, this is amazing. This is worth $1 million, they say to the agent. Agent says, how much do you think it's worth? They say $1 million. And so that information ultimately, it lands on the seller's lap. The same buyer turns up on auction day and registers to bid, and they bid to 800,000. And so I think, well, what's happened? What's happened there? And I think that the buyer that thought it was worth $1 million goes home and starts researching. Oh, okay. This has happened since then. Here's some other sales that have come online. I went and seen the bank. I didn't know interest rate rises was, so high or whatever. Now they're talking about more of them. I'm at 800 now.
Yep.
So and the agent and the seller gets a little bit frustrated at that. But I just see it so often. I would have just rather the agent qualify that person a little bit better, so not for any other reason but to prepare the vendor.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something I saw so often when doing callbacks when I was an agent. You'd ring somebody who wasn't actually going to buy the property and ask the question, what would you pay? And they'd say, I think it's worth $1 million. Well, that's great. You sign a contract at that. No.
That's right.
Well, then it's not worth $1 million.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of new agents that are getting into the selling real estate make that mistake of providing the wrong feedback, which is obviously what we just spoke about.
But agents get excited too. We got this amazing listing. We've got this listing. And so they are really excited about it as well.
And justifying the price that they
that sort of level, no worries, we'll get it. That sort of conversation. But then 3-4 weeks in, the feedback's been coming in less, and the agent starts scratching their head, and a bit of discourse starts to come into play. Days on market blow out, and there is a window of opportunity for that agent to get the job done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a big percentage of the auctions that fall into my schedule every week, 10 or 20%, have been listed with another agent. So they've been listed private treaty, their agreements come to an end, and second agent comes in and auctions it, and more often than not sells it. Yeah.
How are you finding the buyers agents dealing with buyers in the auction space? Do you see it as a benefit, or you just see it as neutral? Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think buyer agents have been... My experience with buyers agents have been great, and for us on the Sunshine Coast, they're a relatively new addition, and they were really born on the back of lockdowns, and where we had an influx of people buying property sight unseen, and hence the rise of the buyers agents, and people in the capital cities have been dealing with them for decades, but for regional Queensland, they're a new addition. But no, they understand auction process. They bring a level of sophistication, and they always do the right thing by their client. But ultimately, the client wants to buy it, and so we find that they're great to deal with. We love dealing with buyers agents.
And a good space if you're short on time to do the legwork. They can do it all for you.
Look, I see, even as a buyer, as a property person, as an investor, if I wanted to buy a property in Brisbane, I'd think, well, as much as I'm immersed in the property industry, I don't actually have time to go down to Brisbane and have a look at comparable sales and things, and so I see the value in one. I'd be more than happy to invest into a buyer's agent.
Yeah. I think that's some great feedback.
Yeah.
Now quite often you're calling the higher sale prices in Australia, and quite often they're selling on a regular basis, which is incredible. What's the marketing process? And I'm probably more focusing in on the Noosa Sunshine Beach market at the moment. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing the marketing process is to take them and have a successful auction campaign to market, sort of from first step? And obviously you mentioned that they're still doing the papers, they're doing all of that. Are you seeing consistency across the board when it comes to selling them?
Yeah, I think they tick all of those boxes. They just amplify them. They're just on steroids, probably bigger marketing spends. It's for some of those marketing spends, 30 and 40 grand, possibly more has been a reoccurring number, in terms of investment. So, I'm not the one, editing and suggesting, where the marketing money is being spent and things like that, but they just do more of it. the same boxes are being ticked. The very world class photography, world class video, very best presence online, and an extensive print database, social campaigns. So, I don't know where else you go. I don't know where else you go.
And I think to put it into context, when we say, there's $30,000-$40,000 marketing campaigns, we're talking, upwards of 10, 15, sometimes $20 million purchase prices.
Yes.
So,
but look, some of my biggest sales, have been to the neighbour, for example, or I had a couple of big rural properties recently, and we had a sale of 700,000 and it sold to the neighbour, and then the next neighbour sold their property for 27 million, and it was the underbidder of the property next door that bought it. So once you get up to a certain level, and look, it'd be clearly different in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane, where there is a more depth of people at that sort of level. But in our marketplace, that's quite a shallow pool of people at that sort of level. The good agents know who those people are already.
Yeah,
they know who they are already.
With obviously the marketing, while we're on it, for somebody that's in a marketplace where, actually, let me rephrase that. What are you seeing with regards to agents actually stepping into that space and really starting to push more marketing, be it video, high quality photos? And we may have briefly touched on this, but getting into a harder market where stock may not be processing as quickly, what's your advice for somebody that has clean photos and then obviously, seeing how the campaigns are going on the higher end or just on the end of processing stock at a higher rate? Where do you see the importance of that video coming into play?
Yeah, it's that first impressions matter. What I don't like seeing is some of the platforms now are coming soon. That coming soon vibe. It's one photo and sort of maybe the address, but coming soon. And I think, okay, well, are we? It might be working great. Like I'm not an agent, so I haven't had any feedback on this. But there's just that first impressions. Like where's the impact from that? I know when I see a property that's just well delivered, it's a very clear statement from the start. Like it's not the campaign doesn't begin with a drip and then get momentum. It's like, bam, here it is. Here's all of it. We're fully prepared. We're not gathering information as the campaign rolls along. It wasn't rushed. And that might have been weeks or months or years in the making. To make that initial impact. Yeah. And so that's what I like to see. I have REA alerts set up like everyone else does on the sunny coast. Like we all see it at the same time, and so look, that's what I notice as an auctioneer, but also as a consumer and as a property buyer.
Yeah, I had an unusual conversation with an agent the other day. $10 million listing, and I said, what was your marketing package? He said, look, I just did the photos and the floor plan. I don't believe in video. And I sort of went a little bit deeper into it with him, and I said, what's your reason behind that? And he goes, well, the way I look at it is if somebody's gone on and watched the video, they've qualified the property and they may not come out and see it, and then I'm not going to get that opportunity to meet them. And statistically speaking,
it's lack thinking.
You're 403% more inquiry on a listing with video. Right. So obviously, that we are still seeing that perception out there. The video doesn't work, but statistically, and speaking with REA and getting all the feedback, it's light years ahead. Where you'll probably like this statistic, from a static photo, changing that on socials to a video, you're looking at 200 to 300% higher click-throughs to your pages. So.
Look, we're just used to videos now. I mean, social media's taught us to gravitate towards videos as they scroll along. Videos for us as auctioneers has been wonderful. When we conduct auctions in rooms, that's always been an integral piece of the puzzle to really present the property, on auction day. And if it's a similar sort of property, or a line of very similar properties, it's very normal for someone that hasn't seen, that might have been bidding on the first one. The second run rolls around and they think, oh, okay, well, this one looks really good too. I'll have a crack at this, because they're just in the mood. Yep. They're in the mood of buying. But I mean, agents walk around properties and FaceTiming, and it's all very important. I know Matthew Condon, who's the chief auctioneer for Ray White in Victoria. During those lockdowns, the videographers couldn't go out and see the homes and present the homes, but vendors still wanted to sell their homes. So what the agents were doing was getting their client to get their phone out and do a property tour. Yep. And his comments were, it's been amazingly well received from the buyers, because they're not seeing something that is polished and produced and sophisticated and articulate and sexy. It wasn't that. It was just the vendor walking around. Hey, this is the house. This is my house. Yeah. And the buyers were like, oh, well, that's something. This is great. There's nothing to be hidden here. Yeah. And obviously the same, that happened right across the country with the lockdowns and things. So, yeah, prior to that time, buying property sight unseen wasn't a thing, but it's now pretty normal. Yeah.
And we actually, on our side of things, we actually built in a walkthrough function. Right. Which gives the agent the ability to upload up to a 5-minute video that's been recorded of the property whilst they're explaining it. Sends an MP4 link directly to the client, and then they can send that to as many people as they want. So that was a huge uptake, obviously, giving them the ability to do the same thing. And
great evolution.
Removes the Dropbox, it removes the WhatsApp and the confusion.
It's all hard to navigate, all that
stuff. It is. So we've made that simple. With the technologies that are sort of coming into play in the auction space, and I know you're very old school, which,
because I'm old.
It's a testament. What are you sort of seeing coming through at the moment that, sort of you've got an interest in, or you're curious to see where it's going to go and evolve?
Always curious on evolution, and always very grateful for those people that are innovators and make our industry better. And there are a number of platforms that will enable buyers to bid, whether that is just tapping a number, their bid into a screen, and it pops up on the auctioneer's screen, and so this hybrid effect of people bidding via a platform and also conducting the auction to a live audience. That is happening. For us, we just kept it very simple. When people are wanting to bid, via a platform, we just use Zoom because it was a platform that we could see them, they could see us. It was simple. It's universal. No one had to learn a new system. But yeah, you are right. I am a little bit old school on that. But I've always subscribed to, I've never wanted the technology to do the negotiation for me or for us. And I think it's a slippery slope if we allow the technology to do the negotiation for a real estate agent. The real estate agent's got to ask, well, what do we actually service do we provide?
What are we getting paid for?
Yeah, because a vendor can place an ad, they can get world-class copy, they can get a video, they can get a sign put up out the front, they can do all that. So what do we do? And then we say, oh no, well, the technology does the negotiation for us. So, and I'm a product of my environment. So 15 years in regional Queensland conducting auctions. There have been times where we've had no registered bidders, and there have been times where we've had double-digit registered bidders, just depending on where the cycle is at. But where the majority of the time has been where we have had less registered bidders. Like, very normal for me to have 1 or 2 registered bidders. And if we have 2 registered bidders, chances are that only one of them might engage. So my question to the technology innovators is, what happens when we have $1 million reserve and the opening bids at $800,000? How do we close the gap? Because I know how to do it, and I do it all the time. And more often than not, and where I believe I've cut my teeth and earned the right to be there, is getting one registered bidder in excess of the reserve price. Well, I don't know any technology platform that can do that.
What are you seeing as some things to, we briefly spoke about before of some of the technologies that are around at the moment. What do you see being some things that people should be aware of moving into that space of obviously using some of these bidding platforms?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so I'm a purist. If someone wants to of auction, so if someone wants to say, I want to bid subject to finance, well, no, is my answer, because auctions it's unconditional. There's no cooling off, no buyer inspection clause, no finance time frame. Like that's it. There's no requirement to dilute that. My fear with some of the platforms is this: if you're bidding on a property and you're at 990,000. And you're subject to finance, okay? And I'm at 995, but I'm unconditional. And the bidding started at 800 grand, and we've gone toe to toe to toe to toe to toe, and now I'm the highest bidder. And if I knew that you were subject to finance, I would have been less.
yeah,
Because as a vendor, I would much rather an unconditional contract, versus a conditional one. All right. So, and then if you go to $1 million and then you buy it, and then for whatever reason the contract crashes because you couldn't get the finance, and the vendor calls me and says, are you still there at 995? Well, I'm sorry, man. I thought you had sold it.
yeah.
You're
now back to 8.
Yeah, I didn't realise that I was bidding against someone that was subject to finance.
Yeah. So ensuring the transparency is probably a key.
I think that my hope is with the auctions that I get to call, in a marketplace that has been, it's very sophisticated now, but over the years it's regional Queensland, so there's the uptake has been a little bit slower than say Melbourne CBD or Sydney CBD. So my hope is, as someone that calls at least 50% of the auctions in my trade area, that the buyers have gone from being tentative and nervous about the process to just being so comfortable. Oh, what a relief, it's you. Great.
Yeah.
We've seen you before. We see how you work. Clear and transparent vendor bids. If we're below the reserve price, I just tell everyone, and we just nut out the deal. Like there's no smoke and mirrors. No one's hiding behind a screen. Everyone is there. Everyone can see one another. It is just a negotiation in its purest form.
And it builds that trust. All too often we hear that real estate agents aren't the most trustworthy people.
Yeah.
Though I think, there is some really, really quality ones out there that are straightforward and straight to the point. And, it's great to hear that on your side of things, obviously bringing that to the auction where it can be a very sort of trustworthy space. And speaking to a lot of vendors throughout my time in real estate, a lot of them don't ever want to go back to the auction process. They are sworn to never go near it again, which is obviously 90% of the time coming from a bad experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's good to see that.
Yeah.
Where do you see auctions going in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see a consistency of where they are at the moment, or do you see a massive change?
I don't see a massive change. When I think about my clients that are at the final stages of their careers, I just say to them, look, I hope when I'm at your vintage, I say nicely and lovingly, I hope it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yes, there'll be innovation, but ultimately, people want to deal with people, and people buy from people they like and people they trust, and just to make that process easy. It's people don't buy homes every day or every week or every month. Like this is something that happens every 7 years at best.
Yeah.
We sometimes make the mistake of thinking the consumer just understands, and with some of the language that agents choose, they just assume that the person understands what they're talking about. But they don't live in the same space as what we do. As much as they are real estate people and real estate tragics, and we love watching The Block and all that sort of stuff. Like it's until the rubber meets the road with a sale and with a purchase. It takes a lot of mind power for those people.
And I think a lot of the time,
So therefore, they need someone to be able to guide them through that.
Yeah.
And what an important role in the community we have as an industry, to welcome people into the community. Agents really need to be the people that introduce them to other people, all the tradespeople, solicitors, like we're the welcome wagon for someone relocating to our area. And so we're like director of first impressions, really. And the same when people are leaving our area. We want to make sure that their transaction has just been executed so beautifully, especially, I think of some people, they've lived in a home for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, they've lived in a home for such an extended period of time. And then, so if and you think about their tenure in that property they've been through, challenges, ups and downs, GFCs, deaths, divorces, marriages, like it's the whole thing of life has happened in that home. All for an agent to come in and, make a mess of it.
Yeah.
I think that is unacceptable.
Yeah. Last one, for someone that's, I guess, in the process of, looking to incorporate auctions into their business, into their selling, absolutely call Gordo. Or for somebody that's, been selling for a little bit and they've got an interest in becoming an auctioneer and calling themselves, what's some advice you would give them, now, and the advice probably you would have liked to have had passed on to you 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Look, I'm a jump off the cliff and build the wings on the way down kind of person. So, if you're curious enough, then you will just start. Yep. And, I get approached by people regularly. Gordo, we want to become an auctioneer. I'll say, okay, that's fine. And I'll point them in the right direction. But then, and they sort of try and convince me that they're going to be the right fit for my team. Firstly, I say, well, look, you've got to have conducted 50 auctions as a salesperson before we can even sit down and have a chat. If you conduct 50 auctions as a salesperson, great. You've got a really great understanding of auction process, and hopefully a superior understanding of auction process than somebody that hasn't done 50 auctions as a salesperson, and then we can sit down, because a lot of that stuff is hard to teach unless you have actually been there. Like, it's hard to teach experience. There's only one way to get experience, and that's to go out and do it. Just go out and see auctions,
just start showing up.
Just start showing up. It's like, oh, good to see you again. Yeah, I'm here. Like, the auctioneers that are coming up through the ranks now, like, I might see them at sort of 50% of my auctions. Like, the auction, I know that the auctioneers that really want it, they know my schedule better than what I do. They ring me. How'd you go at such and such? How'd you go? Hey, good luck at your auction next week. Looks like it's a really great property. And I'm thinking, oh man, I better check my schedule just to make sure. Like they understand my schedule better than what I do. It's very easy to pick my schedule.
Beautiful.
So that's my advice to those people. Get out there and get involved, and get on the radar of people that are in a position to help. If you're not on the radar, well, you don't exist.
Yeah. So anyone, I guess, looking to get into auctions, reach out to Gordo. More than happy to have a conversation, I'm sure. And obviously does the auctioneer training. And as always, a massive thank you to jumping on the podcast. Some massive
first podcast. I'm thrilled.
Some massive gold in there, and I'm sure we'll get some great feedback. So thank you.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.